from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to wave on to this important committee hearing today. I want to thank the witnesses. I represent a district right outside of Chicago, the excerpts of Chicago representing Rockford, Bloomington Normal, Peoria. And I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having this hearing. It's past time that individuals like the mayors we have before us come before us and explain to the American people why we continue to fail to enforce the laws of our country and allow illegal immigrants to flood into our communities. And it's clear to me that sanctuary city policies have significantly harmed our once great cities, which is very, very unfortunate. During my time as an elected official, I have strongly condemned the policy around sanctuary cities and the impact it's had on the state of Illinois. And I believe every sensible resident in Illinois knows these policies have further harmed the economy in Illinois, increased crime throughout our state, and endangered hardworking, law-abiding Illinois citizens. I want to turn my attention to you, Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago. As I've watched you over the last 2 years that you've been mayor, I've been amazed at how tone deaf you have been and how oblivious you've been to the decline of Chicago. And I say that looking objectively at a number of things. Out of control crime in Chicago, people scared throughout neighborhoods on the west side, south side, north side. Morale has never been lower with law enforcement and CPD. Record number of police officers leaving the force. We have been hemorrhaging people out of the city of Chicago to the suburbs and elsewhere where they feel safe. Record number of businesses fleeing the city of Chicago. You couple that with record deficits, $2 billion deficit, the $2 billion deficit line of credit that you just had to take out this week. But you've spent $300 million of taxpayer money on illegal immigrants. And when I think about all of those things and I look at the strategy you continue to take, I mean, you're putting the interest of illegal immigrants above the interest of taxpayers in Chicago. But you continue to go down this path, and for the life of me, I can't understand it. So, Mayor, tell me why you continue to put the interest of illegal immigrants above taxpayers in Chicago.
Thank you for your representation. Violent crime is down in Chicago.
Well, let me reclaim my time. So I have a statistic here. Last year, Chicago had 573 murders.
Down.
Okay, but I want to compare that to the city of New York that is almost two-thirds the size of Chicago, 337 murders. So you had 573 murders in the city of Chicago, and you're one-third the size.
That's the lowest amount in 5 years under my leadership.
Okay, and you look at the level of violent criminals, sexual offenses, and drug dealers.
All violent crime is down in Chicago. In fact, just this year alone, Congressman, respectfully, there's a 20% decrease in violent crime in the city of Chicago.
I don't agree with your statistics.
Well, it's not a matter of whether or not you agree with it. It's a matter of whether it's a fact.
Let me reclaim my time, because I thought you might do this. And when I hear your answer, no one in this room should be surprised that your approval rating is 6.6%. Now, that's not just me saying this. Newsweek article, the least popular politician in America is Brandon Johnson. So recent poll, M3 Strategies, conducted this February 20th to 21st, showed that Mayor Johnson has a 6.6% approval rating, the worst showing of any political figure in the country's history. So I know you're talking about crime is down and things are great and, you know, the city's flush with money. None of that is backed up by the people in the city of Chicago. And so I'm wondering why you continue to go down this path of failed policies, destruction to the city of Chicago, people fleeing, law enforcement at an all-time low. And I'm wondering if you have any remorse for that here today and can tell us why you continue to double down on these failed policies.
We've invested $1.25 billion for housing and economic development, particularly for Black Chicago. It's the largest investment in the history of Chicago. 45% increase in youth employment, particularly for Black and brown children. I will not apologize for my investments in the people of Chicago. We have one of the most diverse economies, the top universities. As violence continues to go down and investments continue to go up, that is what's most important. We've opened up 3 mental health clinics, the first mayor since the first Black mayor in the history of Chicago. Chicago
I'm gonna
to
reclaim
actually
my-
invest in,
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to reclaim my time.
in public health, and I will continue to
Your
make those investments.
approval rating speaks volumes.
Well, the people approve of my investments, and I will continue to
6%.
make those investments.
You're
Thank you
going the
very
wrong direction. You need to reverse your policies on sanctuary cities. That's what the election results were last year. Crime and
Is down in
immigration
Chicago.
were the #1 issue in the election, from Republicans, Democrats,
Chairman, the
Independents.
gentleman's
We
time
could
has
use your
expired.
help to actually help us continue to invest in these programs that continue to drive violence down in the city of Chicago. And I'm willing to work with you, and I'm glad I had a chance to finally meet you for the first time.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Davis from Illinois.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I also want to thank you and Ranking Member Connolly.
If the gentleman could speak into the microphone so we can hear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank you and Ranking Member Connolly for letting me participate in today's hearing. I also want to thank all of the witnesses. I served some time as a city councilman, so I know what it looks like to be mayor and what happens. Thank you for your service. As a proud Chicagoan, I stand in support of our city's locally elected leaders, namely Mayor Brandon Johnson, who could be back home serving the residents of Chicago, but instead is here before us today, preserving and protecting the sovereignty of the city of Chicago as a welcoming and humane city. At a time when immigrants are being blanketly labeled as criminals and targeted haphazardly to fuel the Trump-Musk administration's PR-orientated deportation stunt, I'm proud that since the enactment of the Illinois Trust Act in 2017, the state of Illinois, Cook County, and the city of Chicago have maintained an ongoing commitment to welcoming those in need, including those that have endured persecution abroad and pressed their way across borders, looking and longing for a better life for themselves and their families. I think we all agree that immigration has long played an integral role in the development of American society, culture, and its economy. In recognition of such, the city of Chicago is holding true to its values. As Mayor Johnson has stated on several occasions, that Chicago, and I quote, will remain a welcoming city, end of quotation, despite recent and repeated threats and attempts of coercion from the current administration to do otherwise. Likewise, H.R. 32, the supposed No Bailout for Sanctuary Cities Act that undergirds today's hearing, is drafted in the same threatening, intrusive, and non-constructive manner, as the measure unfairly calls for welcoming jurisdictions to be stripped of federal funding that we just heard often goes towards supporting critical public safety initiatives and local programming needs. In fact, I would commend that the bill as drafted infringes on the constitutional balance of power between states and the federal government and will cause more harm than help if enacted. So, Mr. Mayor Johnson of Chicago, the Windy City, the city of the big shoulders, would you share with this committee what principles and concepts guide your thoughts and actions as you go about your task of being mayor for all of these people in Chicago?
Thank you very much, Congressman Davis, for your leadership, and it's good to see my neighbor here today. You know, look, the city of Chicago, we reflect and we represent the best part of America. It's a diverse city, again, a city that was established by a Black Haitian immigrant and a Potawatomi woman, a city that has invited immigrants from around the world, a city that was built by the formerly enslaved, my ancestors. And it's a very proud moment to not only represent the city of Chicago, but it is my honor. What we've experienced over the last 20 months since I've been in office, first of all, the city of Chicago is safer. We have violent crime has gone down in the city of Chicago by over 20% just this year alone. We've invested in housing. We've invested in mental health care. We've invested in youth employment. We've invested in our overall community safety plan, 200 more detectives to solve crime. We are headed in the right direction, and I'm grateful for your leadership, and I will look for this body to continue to support these efforts for all of our cities. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you. Chair recognizes